Well, thank you so much, Robin, for joining me today. Really excited we finally get to do this and talk about a industry that I've kind of followed for a little while now, and just from afar, which is the sort of beauty industry. And I think people maybe don't understand like how massive of an industry, beauty is, from, makeup to face and everything we put on our body. Like, it is a massive industry. And kind of looking at it over the last couple of years or so, there's a lot of really interesting startups, brands popping up, trying to change, the culture of beauty, and sort of, what you put on your body is really important, just as important as what we put sort of in our body with sort of the food revolution. So before we get into sort of what Beautyologie is, and sort of that mission and vision, talk about your journey and maybe path to get to even where you wanted to start the platform.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. It's great to be here. I actually, I've worked in the beauty industry for many years. Pretty much my entire career was around beauty in some capacity or another. For the last 25 years, I would say. I started off in editorial, did a lot of beauty writing and editing. I was a beauty editor for a magazine, and that kind of segued into freelance work for several years for a bunch of publications. And then I went into the public relations world, where I was working with beauty brands, helping them promote their products, helping them write copy for their products, doing ghostwriting for magazines. So I've always been around the beauty space. And when you say, you mentioned that it's a huge industry, it's huge, and it's just growing and growing. I mean, I think they say it's like worth $500 billion right now, and it's just going to go up and up. And so it's a wild space, and it's definitely evolved over time. Having worked in PR for, the last 15 years, I worked with a lot of different brands, and the ones that I really felt resonated most with me and my ethics and were some of the smaller indie brands where they female founded, and they're startups, and they were really trying to make a difference. And I connected more. I just felt like I was doing something better with my time, I guess you could say, than, if I was working on an account for like a big corporate brand that, I don't know, I just felt, there was something there. So I guess over time, I started getting more involved in learning about, what it takes to do a startup. And at the same time, I was also going through my own personal like issues, like, oh, this is, beauty at the same time, it's a very surface industry. And I think I was starting to feel like I was getting tired of constantly pushing these products for women and bottom line sales and getting it out there. And I was like, I don't know if I want to keep doing it in this capacity. And it's a hard thing, because you have to sell products to make, at the end of the day, it's all about business and making money. But at the same time, I was like, this is so, I don't know, it just left me with not a great feeling. Like, I'm just pushing these products, and every time I would get a press hit, okay, what's the next one? And we got to get this one. And we got to, did we get any sales? Did people buy this stuff? And so I was starting to feel like there's got to be something else out there. I don't think I could be doing this for the rest of my life. So, but at the same time, I feel like, I know I did love the beauty industry, and I had all this, experience in working in it, and I had a lot of contacts, and I'm like, what can I do that can make a change for the better in the world and in people's lives? And this was actually this is pre-pandemic. I was starting to have this like existential crisis in my life. Like, what am I going to do? And then I'm like, okay, I need to get away. I'm going to go on a trip just to kind of get out of my bubble. I've always wanted to go to India, and I did, and it was awesome. And it was it was like, I couldn't have picked, it was actually a really great time and also a really horrible time, because it was right before the whole entire world decided to shut down. And so here I am in India, and it was right when, people were starting to buy masks. Do we need them? What's going to happen? And after about my second week in India, it started to get really bad. And things were starting to take a turn, and we were hearing rumors, and we didn't know what was what, because here we are in India, and my family's like, you need to get home. And
Oh, so it
so
was a solo trip.
yeah, I went on a trip.
Nice.
Yeah, it was a group of women, but it was
Oh,
like
okay.
I went by myself, actually. And to make a long story short, I ended up having to leave early because the country was about to shut down, and I was maybe going to be stuck there. But what happened during that trip is I really I kind of realized it was just really eye-opening being in this developing country on the other side of the world that I've always wanted to visit, that I've read about for years and always was just fascinated by. And I think it just kind of helped me realign my values and my ideas as to what I could do or what I wanted to do. And just seeing how people living in there's a disparity between the rich and the poor, and how Western consumerism is the way that it's the people in the other side of the world are just working so hard to produce our products at what cost we don't necessarily know. And I saw, privy to being able to go to some cooperatives and see, whole towns working together to create products that were being distributed and sold into the United States. And it was just mind-boggling to me. I was just, it was an awe. So when I came back, I really thought, I want to see what I can do with beauty, and really see if I can create something or talk about through my writing, maybe how to talk about how beauty can be used as a vehicle for social good, I guess, for empowering people in different parts of the world, because the ingredients in a lot of our beauty products are sourced from these other countries. And like food, as you said in the beginning, they're farmed, they're produced by a lot of women in different parts of the world. And there's a lot of labor irregularities that go on there that normal, everyday consumers in our country really don't know. And why would they? The beauty industry doesn't really talk about that. And so that is kind of what I wanted to hone in on, is talking about, where our beauty products actually come from and who's sourcing the ingredients, and how it's important to understand this, not just for your own good in terms of health and what you're putting on your skin, but if you want to make a difference in the world and you care where your money is going, you should know that these beauty products are made up of different botanicals from the Amazon, from different regions in Africa, India, and there's a person on the other side of that ingredient who farmed it, who produced it. You don't know if they were being treated fairly, if they were being paid a fair wage, so this is kind of what created my idea for figuring out what I wanted to do with the site.
Essentially, it's a marketplace for clean beauty products, fair trade, organic, basically a place to go and sort of shop startups in the clean beauty space.
Yeah, they're products that are yes, they're clean, and they're also, more importantly, they are either fair trade certified, or they formulate with fair trade ingredients, and they're ethically sourced. And I can get into all of that and what those differentiations mean. But basically, it's a marketplace for brands that all kind of share the same mission, which is using beauty as a vehicle for social good. In my background, with PR, one of my favorite and clients that I worked with for a long time was a shea butter brand called Shailene, and the lady who created it, Rahama, I think you've spoken with her too. Yeah, she super inspiring, and I learned so much from her in her journey as a Peace Corps volunteer. She went into Ghana and realized there was a discrepancy between how the women's work there, which is sourcing, taking shea nuts and producing it into a butter. The corporations would go in and big corporations would go in, and they would take the seeds, they would take them out of the hands of these women. This was like a form of economic, livelihood that they would be able to make a living off of by creating this butter. They would take them, and then they would take them to their facilities and refine them and then use the butter and put them into other products, and sell them on the shelves of, big box stores or whatever. And so she thought, this isn't right. This work should be sort of remain in their country and give these women, a form of employment and a livelihood and be able to pay for the roof over their head and books for their kids for school and food on the table. And so she created this whole cooperative and movement.
This was before you started.
This is before I started Beautyologie. She was a client of mine and a friend. And so, at this time when I'm thinking, okay, how can I, create this platform? I thought back of her, about her, and I reached out and I thought, this is what I'm thinking. What do you think? Like, what do you think people would think about doing like a platform where it's really just brands like yours, but then because there are more, but they're kind of all over the place. Anyway, she was a huge supporter. She's like, I think it's amazing. You should, so, started reaching out to a few other brands that I knew because, obviously being in the beauty industry, I see a lot of what is being launched and where the trends are going. And for the last several years, everything's gone clean. What does that mean? Well, it's, there's not all these toxic ingredients that we didn't know years ago were potentially causing harm. Everything's going clean. Everything's going, green and blue, like it's good for the ocean and it's good for the environment, and eco-friendly and sustainable. And so this is all, this is all great. This is all the way, the direction that, I think it should be going. But one thing I did notice is that when you talk about fair trade and what that is, because a lot of people still they kind of obviously get what it is, but they don't necessarily know like all the pillars involved and what, that it really is more than just coffee or bananas, right? It's it really is about there's a lot of ingredients that go in that are, considered fair trade that are used in beauty products. Again, shea butter, cocoa butter, different oils from, different parts of Africa, marula oil, moringa oil. There's a whole bunch of different ingredients that you can find in the Amazon, and those too can be, fair trade certified. Thought, well, and when you talk about fair trade and you look at the principles of fair trade, which really encompass, making sure people are paid a fair wage, and then also businesses involved in sustainable efforts and champion people's rights and no child labor and sustainable acts. Like it kind of already encompasses a lot of the things and the trends that the beauty industry is promoting now. And they have been all along. So I thought that's really interesting because it's like, if it's fair trade, then it's already doing all of these things. Why aren't people talking about it in this way? So that's when I dug a little deeper and realized, there are brands out there that kind of promote fair trade outwardly because they feel that it's, represents the business's ethics. But there's also a lot of brands that formulate with fair trade ingredients and they don't even talk about it, which I understand because I don't think that it's, at least not now, or I'm hoping it'll change, that it's a marketing stance for them for people to really get around. I think people are more interested right now in, is it clean and does it look good? Is the packaging full, cute? Do I like it? Is my favorite influencer using it? Or is it, did it win a magazine award? Oh, I got to get it, right? It's just, that's unfortunately the beast of the beauty industry. It's all marketing and fueled by, money, which makes it hard as a startup to try get out there. So with Beautyologie, I am, trying to find these brands that really do think of the beauty industry in a different light, where they use it as, it's like a mission driver. Like they have a mission to help their community or the environment or whatever it is. And beauty is part of that. Whereas a lot of these other brands, it's not like that. It's the other way around. So
it's not tough, but like a position you're in is like adding brands to the platform, right? And kind of being a sort of a gatekeeper of looking at brands and deciding, hey, yes, I think you should be on this platform, right? Like, I guess, what is your thought process when you look at, startups or brand that say they are these things, right? And Because if you have the certifications, then those are sort of other people kind of do some due diligence for you. If they have
Yes.
the organic labels and the fair trade labels, and there's all kind of labels that go even vegan labels. There's all kind of labels that go even further than that. Is that the first thing you sort of look at when, brands are coming on board, or do you have a structured approach where, how are you looking at onboarding process and making sure that, I guess, because look, greenwashing is rampant, right? Like a lot of
Oh
these,
yeah, totally.
that's the
Yeah.
hardest part of, I think, everything we're trying to do is trying to really spotlight and showcase like the ones that are actually doing the real work, like you said, right? Like Shayla, like Rama is like, she is like amazing. Like what she has done and what she has accomplished
Right.
is unbelievable. Like Aether
Right.
Beauty is another one that
Yes.
Alafia I had on was,
Yes.
his story is amazing.
Yeah.
And his thoughts around fair trade are like, it's a great start, right? He's like, but it's equivalent to like minimum wage, right? It's like a great first step
Yeah.
for making things a bit more economically fair, across the lines, across the world through economic backgrounds. So there's all these conversations around all these different labels and different
It's definitely not the end
ingredients.
all
And
be
also,
all.
I guess, how do you look at it and approach it? Because it's got to be tough sometimes.
It is. No, I understand. And yeah, it isn't that it's not the end all be all, but it's definitely like you've got to at least start at fair trade. I mean, I think when you're, creating a brand and you're formulating,
Yeah.
you want to, do it as ethically sourced as possible. But yeah, so beauty products are kind of a conundrum because, there can be lots of, there's a lot of ingredients in them. So it's not the easiest thing in the world to say that a product is actually fair trade certified unless it only has like a few ingredients because, and then every ingredient then has to go through a vetting process and make sure that
Shea butter is a good example because I think it's only really shea butter, right? Or like maybe a little bit something else, but it's not too complex.
Right. So there are a tremendous amount of beauty products out there that are fair trade certified completely because you just can't, but they can formulate with fair trade certified ingredients. And if that's part of the brand's ethos, then they would be calling it out and promoting fair trade and what it means and how they're helping people around the world who are sourcing these ingredients and what it means to them. So, there's brands out there that, call attention to that, I guess you could say. And that's kind of where I started sourcing, told them who I was and how I've been in the industry for a long time. And I'm trying to create something here. And what are their thoughts? And is this something they would be interested in being part of? And so that's how I started. And I got amazing response. Like the people that I reached out to were really open and lovely and from all over the world and loved the idea and really thought, no one was doing anything like this in the beauty space. And it was really refreshing and inspiring to them and they wanted to be part of it. So that's how I got my confidence to kind of go forward and go, what? I got this brand in Guatemala. I got this brand in Peru. There's this other one in India, South Africa. I was having Zooms with people all over the world in the middle of the pandemic. And it was amazing. And it felt really inspiring and awesome at the same time because here we are in the pandemic. And I was like, not being totally like thrilled with working in this industry as a PR for so many years and then coming back from India and like being stuck in my house for so long. After that, I was like, this was awesome. I was like, this is what I want to do. I'm going to, create this community of like-minded beauty brands for people all over the world. I want to connect them all. We all have the same mission and it's all about, helping people in the world at the end of the day with beauty, which is, my experience, my background. So that's kind of how it started. And so I, created it with about a handful of brands and got a little bit of press. And as I have, people started reading about it, I was getting more and more brands reaching out to me saying, we love what you're doing. We're this fair trade lip balm brand, or we're this, that, and the other. And so, I'd have conversations with these brands and it was a good fit. Although, there are brands that would come after me and they weren't really that. And so I was, obviously like, show me that, you're fair trade, or what are your certifications? Can you, provide to me, like, how do you source? And it's not the easiest thing, but I have a pretty good sense of detecting bullshit. So I can tell that like, you are what you say you are or not, and obviously being in the industry, I know a lot of brands, and, and I contribute to magazine sites and stuff still. So I get a lot of incoming press releases sent to me. So I'm kind of always like reading and seeing like what's next or what's being launched and that kind of thing. So kind of that's how I've been able to vet. So yeah, so now I'm at this point where I just kind of want to, grow it and go after some of these other brands. Like you said, I feel like I have reached out and connected with the founder. So fingers crossed that he is into what I'm creating, as I think that would be awesome to, work with them. And, I've had conversations with some other brands too that are going to be coming on soon. So it's exciting.
You mentioned that, starting something is really, really difficult. And you've kind of, starting like a, PR, firm and kind of running that is much different than, starting an e-commerce platform, right? There's a much more technical side to it, right? So like,
oh yeah,
coming from not that world, right? And for other maybe potential, founders out there that want to make this maybe transition to, starting like a online.
No, I'm kidding. It is so humbling. I guess I don't know how it's just like
But hey, the site looks great. Like listen, you've done, and I know it's been stressful, but like you're at a place where like it's in a good spot. It's just like talk about, I guess, those first, few months when you're like, okay, I'm gonna do this. Now figure out what platform to build on. I think you even switched platforms, right? Like just
3 hours. Yeah. It totally changed. It was always on Wix at that point. And then I focused more on the finding beauty in life and inspirational stories, partly with, my having gone to India and writing about my experiences. And then I realized that, it turned into this marketplace because I had written a holiday gift guide, and everything that I included was fair trade and ethically sourced. And I got into the specifics of what those products were. And I had a lot of people really liked that. And I got a lot of attention for it. And that kind of made me think, oh, maybe it could be a marketplace. So that is how that happened. And then once I realized that, and I started thinking in those, in that way, I realized it needed to not be on Wix, and found a developer and a designer. And in the beginning, it was more about the blog and less about the products. And so we really thought, it could be, a WordPress with WooCommerce would be great.
Right.
And so that's kind of how it started. And then it was fine until it wasn't, because I realized the way that I was creating this marketplace really needed to integrate more with the brands that I was working with, and most brands work on Shopify. Realized after I launched the site, and I did a soft launch, and after just a handful of months, I'm like, I have to change this, because the longer I wait, the harder it's going to be. So really decided okay, we're going to redo the whole site. We're going to migrate it to Shopify. And
that's amazing. I mean, kudos to you for realizing that and kind of ripping the Band-Aid off, because that is a big deal. And it's cost money and time and stress, but it's really great to have that foresight of okay, we know what we need to do, and let's just do it now, because in the long run, it's really going to help. So I think that's just a great tip and lesson. If you feel like something is not working, just move on from it, right? No reason to stick around a hassle. Move on from it, go with what your gut says to go to, because like you said, it's just gonna play out in the long run.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess part of that is, I've learned with working with brands for so long that I realize what works, what doesn't. But yeah, it's been a huge educational journey. I feel like I went back to school to get my MBA or something, but I wanted a challenge. I wanted something different. I felt like I was definitely I had burned out in PR, and I was like, I can't promote breast cancer awareness, pink products one more time in my life. I've learned a lot. I'm still got a lot to learn. Working with the right people and trusting your gut is everything. And I'm still looking for, I feel like I've been lucky with the people that I've been able to work with so far for the most part, and trying to make these decisions because you don't want to make a mistake and you don't want to waste money. And I'm bootstrapping this right now. It's like, it's me. It's not like I have funding or anything like that, which, maybe down the line, that'll be a different conversation, but I'm just kind of going and creating this platform in the vision that I think what I like and what seems to be resonating so far. So, but again, you don't want to make a mistake. I don't want to like screw up and damn it, I hired that company and they took, X amount of money. And now what, like, it's like, you can only do so much. And so, learning SEO and what all these different opportunities in terms of pay-per-click and Google ads and oh my God, like,
it's
I
a lot.
What's a meta tag and what's what is an alt tag, and it's a different language. It's very easy to get disillusioned quickly as an entrepreneur, especially when, you are working solo on this project. Even though I work with a lot of amazing brands and people that are helping me, it's still me by myself. And so, there's some days, just like with any entrepreneur, you wake up and you're like, this is an awesome day. I'm going to do this, that, and the other. It's going to be great. And then there's just days where you're just like, what the hell did I create? What am I doing? Like, it's just like, I don't even know where to start. My mind is so like tired. Like, I have to learn this whole new Klaviyo thing. Like, what the hell? Like, I didn't even know what a mail flow was. I mean, I'm being completely honest. I'm like, what is a mail flow?
No, I hear you.
And so I'm like, okay, a mail flow. And
it's the things they don't tell you, right? When you say, oh, you just start up and do all these things. And it's just like, but there's so many different dynamics that go into all this. And I think we all have to learn it. Like, I went down that same path as you did a while ago. The same thing. I had to learn everything, which is good now, right? But going through it, it's so like painful. You never think you're gonna get out of like the learning phase. And look, you're always going to be learning, right? There's going to always be new stuff and things change, of course. But it's really like laying that foundation to where, as we'll jump into like the last question here, is about like the vision, right? Of what the next few years you want it to be. These are like the building blocks, right? The shitty foundational bricks that you have to build in order for that vision to like work in 2 years, 3 years, right? 4 years down the line. What does success mean to you, right? In 2 to 3 years?
Yeah. I mean, obviously I want the bigger brands that are, we think of when we think of ethical, fair trade beauty, to be able to collaborate with Beautyologie is awesome, would be, definitely a big goal, and would definitely validate what I have, my vision and what I'm trying to create. But I do think that, my biggest goal when I decided to even create this is just to really, I want to inspire women to understand where their beauty products are coming from, and when using their purchasing power to really drive, I guess, economic development in these different, developing countries around the world. So when you go into a store and you want to buy a product on the shelf of wherever you're at, Target or whatever, and you look at these ingredients, you realize that there's a woman, mostly because farming is, it's women's work around the world. And, that's another thing, people don't necessarily get that, and, I didn't even know really until I started really digging in and educating myself about this. We're talking about women's empowerment and female founders, and that's, huge. And it's us female founders helping other women around the world lift them up. And these women are, sourcing these ingredients. So I want to be able to make that correlation for consumers that are,
it's such a great point.
Beauty products, to know that like when they're buying these products that you're, there's certain ingredients and what these labels mean something, they really mean something. And you're really, helping these women in other parts of the world. And so so that's like a big goal of it's a lofty goal, but I don't know, like also I think of like somewhat in the sense of like how there's, there's the fashion revolution, right? That happened, it kind of spurred almost a decade ago. I don't know, maybe 9 years ago, like when, they really started talking more about where your clothes are made and who's making your clothes, right? Who's, I made your clothes. You see those signs where there's, these workers in Bangladesh or wherever,
Yep.
India. I made your clothes. I made that, that whole revolution and, what they've done with educating consumers about where your clothing is coming from. Really, it's amazing. And so I kind of see this somewhat similar, like with the beauty products, like who's making your beauty products, and where are they coming from? So it's not really that different. But again, that's what I'm trying to create here. And then, and in doing so, really the brands that become part of this collective, I guess you could say, that I'm putting together with Beautyologie is just to, bring more awareness to their cause and mission and what they're doing. And then also, I guess my other goal is really just from the worker side, that this will eventually, as this movement continues to grow and people in other parts of the world, like the people I saw in India and the people that are employed by the brands on my site are, able to really reap the benefits from their work at the end of the day.
I always say, like, fellas, we have a role in this too, because we could buy these gifts, right? We could buy these products for presents and gifts for our loved ones as well. And like you said, I think you kind of, once you understand, I think the back end of what happens when you use your purchasing power. I mean, it's really kind of a powerful thing once you understand the supply chain, what goes into this from a worker's point of view, what happens when you buy something from this cooperative, like how that affects even the local community there, how it affects education for their children, right? There's this domino effect that happens.
Yes.
It's quite profound. And
it really is. It is. It's amazing. And when I, learning about this, it's mind blowing. That's what, I'm trying to get out with Beautyologie, and in doing more of this work and more of the writing and spreading the awareness and getting the site out. That's what my goal truly is to get it out there. And hopefully people will start to, understand. And I think they will. Consumers have obviously demanded from the industry that their products be more transparent in terms of formulation and ingredients, because that's where everything's going, right? Like everything's clean, and you've got to say you're paraben free and you're cruelty free and you're, or you're vegan, or you're, you don't have talc or this, that, and the other, because consumers are demanding it. And the younger generation, they're all, everyone's an activist this day. So it's like they're asking for it, and the products are, in turn, the brands are doing that. So I think this is like the next, like I said earlier, fair trade encompasses a lot of this stuff already.
Well, thank you so much, Robin. I mean, it's really a journey that I can relate to a little bit, with just, building something solo and not having, funding that, some startups may have. And I think even a lot of the brands that you have on your platform usually come from that bootstrap mentality too. They're building it from a vision and from a place of passion, and, putting their own sweat equity in it and their own money into it. So we're kind of all of this, it's sort of together, and this collaboration of conversation, right? It helps me like keep going as well. And I hope that it helps like the listeners like hear what you've built, right? And hear, say, hey, you don't have to come from a certain background, even technical background. Like you could still build something that impacts a person's life, right, around the world, which is really incredible. So thanks so much for the time, and of course, best of luck the rest of this year and the decade to come.
Thank you so much. I truly appreciate it. It's an honor being on your show. I love it.